I'm not sure what we just watched, but we're going to talk about it. Sometime down the road, maybe when this SU program eventually returns to glory, you'll be able to say, hey, remember that triple overtime Boston College game? You won't forget it, because how could you? In a season that many fans want to forget, you'll always remember this 95-86 Orange win that took 3 extra periods. It was an instant classic in all the weirdest and wrong ways. Down by 7 in double overtime, the Cardiac Cuse dug deep and came back to win by 9 points. It wasn't pretty, but SU pulled it out in the longest game since that 6 overtime classic against UConn in the 2009 Big East tournament. The good, the bad, and the overtimes. We'll break it all down next on Orange Press Pass, which starts mercifully right now. Syracuse takes down Boston College 95-86 after nearly 3 hours. Finally, we're here at this desk alongside Nico Horning and Jake Klein. I'm Peter Elliot. What a game. We're going to try and make sense of this one here on Orange Press Pass. We promise this show will only last a half hour. That's all the time we've got here for this regulation edition of Orange Press Pass. Nico, I know you've got a lot of thoughts. Make them clean here. Let's start with you on this game.
Many thoughts on this game. First thing I got to say is a win is a win, and Syracuse did get that win today, but it wasn't exactly the way that maybe Syracuse fans anticipated when, Jake, they could have got it done at the end of the first, or rather the end of the second half before any of the 3 overtime games. But you know what? They got the win. The next step for this team is the ACC tournament, and you know, a W is a W. Syracuse got that done today at the end of the day.
Well, I want to pick out, for my first thought, what you just said right there. Syracuse should have won this game in regulation. They led by 3 with 6 seconds left. You like to foul up 3. Adrian Autry has said in the past he likes to do that. He fouls. He knows that's the right situation, but his team has 1 foul to give. So what happens? They try to foul again. Instead, Earl Grant completely outcoaches Adrian Autry, gets a wide open look for a game-tying 3, and sends this thing to a myriad of overtimes. It never should have happened in the first place.
But it did happen somehow. A win is a win is a win. We'll show you how it all went down inside the Dome, all 3 overtimes and all that regulation inside the Dome. What a weird and wild game it was for SU. We start with a really hot start here from Elijah Moore, who has struggled at a lot of times so far this season, but he got out to a hot start. 8 points for Chapa, Nico.
Elijah Moore had a great start for the Orange today. 8 points to get the game rolling, and 11 in the first half, but that was it for Elijah Moore.
That was it for Elijah Moore. He only played 6 minutes in the second half, so a hot start for the freshman who has been scoreless so many times this season, but not much doing in the second half. Donald Hand Jr. was all over it for Boston College. Big in this game, but J.J. Starling was as well. He got his shot rejected there, and back on the other end, it was Hand Jr. again for 3 cash. BC was staying tight there, 34-27 SU at halftime. But J.J. Starling, like he has done so many times this season, Jake, he heated up in the second half.
Yeah, in that first game between these 2 teams, Starling had 6 first-half points, finished with 26. Today, 4 in the first half, and he finishes with 28.
Finishes with 28. He was the star for SU. But this was down the stretch here. BC was hanging tight, and Hand Jr. again. It was the 2 guards, Hand and Starling, back dueling together. This was the final play of regulation here for BC. Hand Jr. for 3 to push it to overtime. He hits it, tied at 66. Improbable. Look at all the surrender Cobras in the Dome. Unfathomable, Nico.
Bad defense from J.J. Starling. Did not go above the screen, and that cost him to go into overtime.
And then Eddie Lampkin Jr., a huge steal. J.J. for the win. No, we're going to a second overtime. Unbelievable. Tied at 76 now. J.J. at the line. He cannot hit that shot. BC trying to win it here. Unbelievable. Beetle here trying to make a play. He can't get it. It is stripped by Kyle Cuff. He heaves up a shot. It won't go. Can you imagine if he had hit that shot, Jake?
Yeah. Couple chances for each side at the end of OT and double OT, no dice.
Tied at 85, heading into the 3rd overtime. Jair Davis, huge in this one. Lots of clutch turnaround jumpers. That has become a big part of his game. SU somehow pulled away in this third overtime. At one point, they were down bad in the second overtime. They came back to win by 9, 95-86. in the third overtime. One of the wildest games you'll ever see on this court. We thought it would be a routine rebound win for SU. That was anything but, Nico.
And Jair Davis really had a great overtime period, finished with 16 points on the afternoon. But J.J. Starling, super effective in the second half like he was last time out against Boston College. And despite trailing by 7 at one time in extra minutes, Syracuse got it done today.
They really did get it done in this one, indeed. We welcome in Adam Cohon from the Dome now. Adam, it's good to see you. You have quite literally earned your overtime pay for the week. Congratulations. In the press conference, which might have just wrapped up already, what did Adrian Autry have to say about, what did he have to say to his team in between all those overtime periods?
Yeah, Peter, he told his team, just relax. Stay to your game. Do not try anything crazy. Don't go for the three. You don't need to do anything extra. Just stay true to who you are and what you know how to do, and we'll come out on top. Adrian Autry was very confident in his team, regardless of how late this game was getting.
Boston College did not score in the final 4.5 minutes of that third overtime. And for Syracuse, maybe some defensive changes when the crowd was getting into a game that didn't really have many stakes in it. What did you see from the defensive stance from Syracuse in that third overtime?
As I just said, Syracuse did not want to change much. Adrian Autry wanted to stay true to his guns, and all he really wanted his team to do was get aggressive. Eddie Lampkin mentioned that when we did post-game player ops. He said, we just needed to get aggressive, me especially. I needed to get aggressive, grabbing those boards and shutting out Boston College. Eddie controlled the complete inside of the paint to stop Boston College from doing much, and stopping BC from really putting the ball in and getting things going was huge for Syracuse. But the aggression that they showed was very, very necessary, and it was super important to stopping the three ball as well. If they weren't aggressive, I distinctly remember Petar Mastarovic and Jaquan Carlos trapping a Boston College player in the corner to force a turnover. They just got aggressive, and that was the biggest thing about the defense late in the game.
Adam, I'm curious, kind of a weird game. On paper, a great one, 3 overtimes back and forth, but not a position Syracuse is used to being in against a program like Boston College. What was the vibe in the Dome from the fan base in this kind of weird situation?
Jake, you would think that this team was on fire. The Dome crowd was raucous. They were loud. They were proud to be orange. They were feeling themselves regardless of how many free throws this team missed or how many times they turned the ball over. The Dome crowd was committed to helping their team win as a bit of a six-man type mentality. I had my poor parents come to this game, and they sat through 3 overtimes, but even they were standing up and cheering for a school that they've watched their poor boy go to. But they really made the entire Dome just came together and really put things together to help Syracuse pull this one out 95-86 in triple overtime.
Adam, thank you so much. Give our best to your parents. I love that there's a team warming up behind you as if this day hasn't been long enough. Hope that triple overtime game didn't cut into the reservation in the Dome too much. Adam, thank you so much. We've still got plenty more to go over from this one. How did SU pull it out? We'll break it all down on another, as well as another strong day in the glass for Eddie Lampkin. We'll also reveal our player of the game. Stay with us here on OPP. Welcome back to Orange Press Pass, wrapping this game up. 95-86, SU pulls it out over Boston College and Peter Elliott alongside Nico Horning and Jake Klein. This was the second game that Syracuse has played in overtime this season. That first one, we remember it, that double overtime win over Youngstown State early on in the year. I don't know if we expected a game to be even longer than that. I just would like to start with you, Nico, here. How do you think the Orange pulled this one out?
Well, the most frustrating part about this game was the fact that it actually went into overtime. And you know, once you get over that phase, and I know a lot of Syracuse fans are frustrated, we were expecting this thing to be over in studio, and then all of a sudden Boston College snaps back. But the way this game played out in overtime, Syracuse went down by 7. Boston College trailed by a few points as well. And overall, Syracuse pulls out the win. There were some players that stepped up. Jair Davis was one of them who's putting the shot up right there, and Syracuse pulled it out in OT and finished the game strong in the third overtime.
You have to give Syracuse credit. There was a point in double overtime, like you said, down 7 points where this thing looked bleak, but Jair Davis stepped up, had 8 of his 16 points after regulation ended. J.J. Starling, as usual, was great down the stretch. It got to a point where it was bad for Syracuse, and the Orange just didn't let up, and they got back into it.
They somehow kept fighting throughout this game. It wasn't working from beyond the arc, but it was working for some guys. You mentioned Nico, Jair Davis, J.J. Starling, another guy who was big in this game.
I was going to say one thing, Peter, was, like you just pointed out, Syracuse did not make a three-pointer at all in overtime, which is a great problem, showing that they can drive inside, create other ways to score, and they don't have to rely on the three ball as much.
And struggles with the free throw line as well, which has been a theme throughout the season, but especially bad in this game when, you know, we're down to overtime. Every point matters, and they're squandering so many opportunities at the charity stripe. Well, let's move on here now to a guy who was big in this game. He's been big throughout this season. It is the Baldwinsville native himself, J.J. Starling, who had just 4 points in this first half. Of course, he came alive in the second half and in overtime as well. Finished with 28 points. Jake, I want to go to you. What does he mean to this program, and how did he help this team win?
Well, he's just about this entire program right now, especially with the news we'll talk about Donnie Freeman.
Right.
But, boy, he did the same thing when these two teams played in Chestnut Hill earlier this season. A slow start. He had 6 in the first half in that game, 4 in the first half today, and he just gets it going right when Syracuse needs him the most and turns it on, and he finishes tied for a game high with 28 today.
The moment that set this game apart for J.J. Starling was the 2 3-pointers he had right off the bat in that second half, and that's what got him going. You look for that acceleration from your star player and your leader, and you get that in Starling this season. We saw it in the last time out against Boston College just a little bit over a month ago, or I guess just under a month. Can't do my math exactly with the dates there. But Starling came alive again today in the second half, so you know that he can do these things against Boston College, and it was the same exact way the game played out last time.
He is the second half star indeed. It's amazing the parallels between those two Boston College games. Something about the Eagles makes him play that way. Another guy who has had a strong play as of late is Eddie Lampkin, who had 23 rebounds in that game against Pitt. That was the most for a Syracuse player in a long, long time since the 90s, Derek Coleman. He had 18 in this game. He continues to put up historic rebounding numbers. Nico, what did you make of the big fella's play?
I thought that, you know, his presence really early on was very important for the Syracuse team, but he wasn't exactly getting the baskets to go in right away. And I know, Jake, we talked about this initially, was, okay, Lampkin's getting the rebounds, but at some point you got to put the ball back in the bucket. He did that towards the end of the game, and that's what set him apart later on.
Yeah, there's a reason Eddie Lampkin is a double-double machine, and that's because he misses so many of those tip-backs and then gets his own rebounds so many times that he walks away with these rebound totals of 23, 18 every night.
He was almost stat padding himself.
Right.
That is a very important clarification there, Jake. I think that is one thing to note. It's like we talked about the parallels with like that women's ice hockey team, right? Allie Kelly is the all-time, NCAA leader in saves, but that's because the offense isn't giving her any opportunities and the defense is so leaky.
I do think Nico's right, though. He stepped up late in this game. A couple of the boards he did have on the defensive end came in really big moments, and he's in double digits scoring again.
And defensively, you're right. In that first overtime, he got the steal that led to a potential J.J. Starling shot. He didn't end up making the 3, but he was strong defensively down the stretch.
Definitely. And one thing he did do was he kept Chad Venning out of the equation for the most part, the Boston College big man. He was not even sure if he was going to play going into this game due to an injury. He did, and Lampkin kind of leveled him off pretty well throughout the contest.
That was an old school clash, 2 big guys going at it. That's not something we see too often in this college game anymore, but Chad Venning and Eddie Lampkin, that was a fun matchup in the Dome. Well, our player of the game is, you guessed it, the starling who shined when it mattered most. It's JJ, the junior. He finished with 28 points, the second most he scored in a game this season. There is, of course, an asterisk. He had an extra 15 minutes in this one. The game followed a familiar pattern for Starling, like we talked about. A slow start followed by a furious finish. The Beeville native lifted the orange like he has so many times this year. SU lives and dies with his play. In this case, they barely had a heartbeat by the final buzzer, but they won. We're moving on to the second half of Orange Press Pass. There were other college basketball games being played today. I don't know if any of them were as wild as this one, but we'll go around the NCAA as well as around the Hill and take a look at the big picture next on OPP.
Leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown and feel technique. After the first drown, a good stir. Next, another drink. And finally, a close feel.
Is it cool? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Smokey, catch! Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back here to Orange Press Pass. That is Nico Horning. That is Jake Klein. I'm Peter Elliot. Syracuse wins 95-86, a thriller inside the Dome. That's a game people will be talking about for a long time, but let's look around the Hill to see some of the other scores and upcoming games that people might be talking about as well. Let's start here with this women's ice hockey team, Nico, that is streaking as of late. They've won 4 games. They're up big over Robert Morris.
And Allie Kelly's a big reason why, setting the all-time NCAA saves record a couple of games ago, and Syracuse with a big win today, 5-1, as they're starting to round out the season and finish this thing off before the postseason.
A big win indeed. They were rounding out that season, but one team starting the season is the softball team. Syracuse down in Wilmington, North Carolina in an early season tournament. They are off to a 3-0 start, Jake. A good beginning for that program.
Yeah, pretty funny that one of the teams they face down in North Carolina is Lemoyne,
Right.
the next door neighbor
Exactly.
here in Syracuse. But look, early season softball action has always favored these power conference teams like Syracuse. Once it gets into ACC play, you can really start to get a feel.
That has historically been a problem for the Orange. We'll see how they do once they approach there. The tennis team off to a 4-0 start as well. They are down in your home state, Jake, of Massachusetts. And the women's basketball team as well. They will be down tomorrow in Winston-Salem against Wake Forest. They've won 2 of their last 3 games. Let's take a look around the country, though. The other big men's basketball scores. Ooh. My eyes go first to that ACC contest later tonight, Duke and Clemson. In an ACC field that has been struggling this year, that'll be a great game to go.
And we saw, everyone here in Syracuse just witnessed what Duke could do the other night with Cooper Flagg and company showing out Syracuse in the Dome in that blowout. But also, I mean, look at that little blowout, or not blowout, little upset. The top right corner there with Florida and Auburn.
That is right. The number 6 Gators taking down number 1 Auburn. We'll see if that shakes up the AP top 25. My eyes also go to that top left there. Marquette taking down, or rather it was Creighton taking down Marquette to kind of hold on to that second place in the Big East behind St. John's. And then you get a little Big 12 after dark, Arizona and Texas Tech. All right, let's take a look now at the big picture of this SU season. And it's not gone the way that many people expected it to. And a big reason why is because of the 5-star freshman, Donnie Freeman. Adrian Autry promised an update would come about the status of Freeman. We got it before the game today. He was listed as day-to-day for over a month. He is now shut down for the rest of the season. That is according to a statement issued by the team prior to tip-off. That statement saying he will undergo a procedure on his right foot next week. Quote, "We expect him to make a full return to basketball and will support him throughout the recovery process," end quote. Nico, that begs the question, what do you think the future will look like for Donnie Freeman?
It's a tough question because, sorry for the voice track there. It's a tough question because the landscape of college basketball nowadays, someone is a free agent basically every single year. And for Donnie Freeman, this is not the way that Syracuse fans thought his time would go here, only playing in 14 games, having a bit of a slow start as well right off the bat, Jake. But Freeman to end up getting injured and now out for the foreseeable future. Not exactly what Syracuse fans were expecting from him.
Right. Donnie Freeman, if he does not return to Syracuse, I think will go down as one of the most disappointing Orange players of all time. 14 games, he averages 13 points and 8 rebounds on what could go down as one of the worst Syracuse teams in 50 years.
Yeah. And one of the highest recruitments since Carmelo Anthony as well.
Right.
So a lot at stake with Freeman, just ultimately didn't exactly pan out here in his freshman year.
And it's unfortunate to have to start to think that way. And again, we don't know yet what will happen with the future of Donnie Freeman. A lot of options on his table. There was talk about him entering the NBA draft. He was high in a lot of mock drafts, but after that foot injury, it seems like he slid off a lot of those drafts. It seems off of those draft boards. It seems unlikely he'll be a pro prospect after this year. But the question is he going to be wearing orange next year or another color?
That's the thing we don't know yet, but you're right. He was listed at some of the top of those draft boards right off the bat this season, and even then I was kind of questioning. I'm like, with his slow start in the Syracuse uniform, this guy does not look like a first rounder. He has the potential to be a first rounder, but now the fact that he's out and you got to wait a little while for him to play, whether it's in a Syracuse jersey or not, his value is going down just a little bit, but wish him the best.
We sure do. It may go down as a great what if. What if Donnie Freeman had not gotten hurt this season? What could have been for both his future, his time in Orange, and this season as well. I want to move on to also just this season as a whole. Jake, there have been a lot of questions about kind of the future for Adrian Autry, only in his second season, but there's been a lot of struggles through these first 2 campaigns. What have people been saying this week about his time here behind the bench?
Well, people have been saying just about everything there is to say. Yeah. But one person in particular, Adrian Autry's mentor and the legendary Syracuse men's basketball coach, Jim Boeheim, came to his defense on Q Sports Talk this week. Here's what he had to say.
Coaches take over a program and they get a contract, whether it's 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. And you have to allow coaches to grow into the job. Just remember, they called for Dean Smith's firing at North Carolina and Mike Krzyzewski's firing at Duke after 2 or 3 years.
So I don't know if Adrian Autry is going to be Coach K or Dean Smith, Nico, but do you think it's worth, if you're a Syracuse fan, staying patient with that recruiting class coming in next season? Is it worth another year of the Adrian Autry experiment?
It's tough because Boeheim is right, and for a guy that's coached 50 years at Syracuse, you're going to trust the guy. But it's hard now when Syracuse has been this bad for so long to keep a guy relevant and to trust him for more than 2-3 years after not really doing much and progressing your program. It's a tough question to answer right now, and we'll see what happens with Adrian Autry going forward.
You can feel Orange fans kind of getting antsy. They're seeing the program, the luster of this program slip. We just played a triple overtime game on the CW.
Right.
It's been a pretty listless season. They just lost a huge game to Duke. And here we are at this point. We know Jim Boeheim had a pretty great start to his tenure in Orange. Adrian Autry, not so much. I think beneath all those losses, a lot of double-digit losses. There have been a lot of bad losses in his tenure so far. That's what has fans so soured on his tenure so far.
And going against the Boston College team that's pretty much at the bottom of the ACC. Going to triple overtime to pull out the win is not exactly what you want to be doing. But the stats prove it. Boeheim's right. Coach K, Coach Dean Smith for North Carolina had, bit of rough or average starts, and then obviously everyone knows how their programs picked up. So there's always a chance. I just don't see it exactly happening right now with Coach Autry.
Right. Think about how many coaches had those mediocre seasons in years 1 and 2 and then continued having mediocre seasons their whole careers.
Or got fired.
Right,
which is
exactly.
always the case.
You see a lot of fans kind of feeling that way, especially when you look around the ACC. You see a guy like Pat Kelsey at Louisville who has really reinvigorated that Cardinals program. We will see what happens right now. But for right now, Adrian Autry is the head coach, and the Orange are 11-13 after a win over Boston College. They are just barely in the ACC standing in the ACC tournament. We'll talk more about that after the break. We'll show you the standings in this conference, and as well as the NCAA tournament outlook for the ACC. Plus, we're taking a look at some of the other scores around the country. We'll preview that all coming up next on Orange Press Pass. Wrapping up shop here on Orange Press Pass after what was a wild game inside the Dome. Peter Elliot alongside Nico Horning and Jake Klein. Let's take a look now at the standings around the ACC. One team is at the top there, Nico. It is Duke, which came into the Dome and demolished the Orange on Wednesday.
We just talked about it a few minutes ago. Duke is legit and a perennial national contender possibly come March and early April. They're the team to beat here in the ACC right now, Jake.
Right. They do play Clemson tonight. If anyone can beat the Dukies, it could be the Tigers.
It really very well could be. That is Clemson as well, another team that has taken down SU indeed. And Syracuse, unfortunately, near the bottom of those standings. Still in line to make the ACC tournament, though. It is time now to sound off. We've heard a lot from Nico and Jake so far, but now is the time for the floor to really be theirs. Nico, we'll start with you. What is on your mind?
All right. Well, yeah, new segment for Orange Press Pass.
All right. As my high school baseball coach once said, the last game does not remember the next game. Now, how am I going to phrase that here in a Syracuse basketball season? Well, everyone knows that Syracuse has not had a great season. But you still got games left. You still have something to reach, and that is the ACC tournament. Today's win, I don't care that it went to 3 overtimes. They got the W, and they now put themselves 2.5 games ahead of Boston College. Going forward in the ACC standings, Syracuse standing in that last spot right now. They have a chance to at least play some extra basketball. That's the goal right now for Syracuse, and that's why you cannot remember the recent games. You got to move on and move forward.
Nico, I might be a little bit more pessimistic than you, but I think what we just watched, while it was in a vacuum, a fun and entertaining basketball game, is perhaps the single greatest microcosm of what Syracuse basketball has become. Syracuse basketball, in record time, has gone from one of the premier programs in this sport to toiling in mediocrity. I don't know what it is that has to change. I don't know if it's a change at head coach, or a new transfer portal philosophy, or an increase in NIL standing. I don't know. But Syracuse basketball, as I know it, as I grew up watching, doesn't need 3 overtimes to beat 15th place Boston College. That's sad, and something has to change.
What else can you say? I mean, that's sounding off right there, Jake Klein. Yeah, I don't know what else you can say there. It is certainly an indictment of where this program is at. And again, back to the standings here. It's not guaranteed that you're going to make the ACC tournament anymore. There are now, in this expanded conference, 18 teams, only 15 get in. Syracuse is just scraping and clawing to even be the 15 seed in this tournament.
And for where they're at right now, playing 2 of the bottom teams in the ACC with Boston College and Miami on Tuesday, potential to get that other win against the bottom team. There's still a chance that they can make that tournament like you talked about, Peter, but it's getting to that point where, Syracuse has got to look for the positives. Jake, I know you kind of expressed this bad vibe that Syracuse has had lately, but there are still some positives to be had here to end in the season.
There are, and I think one positive is the next opponent is one you can take down here. It is Miami, perhaps one of the worst Power 5 teams in the country. They sit at 5-17 on the season, just 1-10 in conference play. They have struggled mightily since Jim Larinaga stepped down back in December. Jake, do you think this is a game Syracuse can actually go into the Wasco Center and win?
Yeah, just about everyone has gone into the Wasco Center this year and won. Miami, kind of a surprise, has been the doormat of the ACC all season.
It wasn't long ago that Hurricanes program was in the Final Four. We'll see if SU can pull it out. The Orange are 2-4 on the road in ACC play. Well, that just about does it for Orange Press Pass. I promise you, we're not going to double, triple overtime. That
No,
does
we're
it
not.
For our show.
We're done.
Thank you to our executive producer Gabe Perrin, associate producers Jack Nevins, Landon Stills, and Helena Stoven. For Nico Horning and Jake Klein, thank you so much for watching Orange Press Pass. Have a great night and rest of your weekend.